I would introduce our last speaker, Raúl Figueroa, who has a BA in economy with studies on applied mathematics. And since he is in environment, he has studied sustainable development, clean energy, has been working at the INEGI since 93. Right now, he is an expert in national environmental accounting at a national and international level. He continually travels to give his courses, and he has an important project on economic accounting. He has many sectors having to do with forestry, contamination, and emissions. Today, he has to do with the water accounting, which is the economic evaluation of the expenditures in this resource. Thank you very much, Arturo. Thank you, and especially the organizers of this event, because it is always important to be able to add an insignificant piece of information to the large volume of information we already have. So I want to have Juan Ricardo Rodriguez, Gerardo Leiva, who heads the research department, and especially the colleagues who make possible this event, because sometimes you don't see the person who provides the coffee, but we know that there's an important effort carried out jointly by WAM and INEGI, because it's difficult to bring together so many experts that bring information on the topic. But seen from the border of the user, we add a great deal to the topic, but sometimes solutions are hard to attain. We would like to have solved the problem of water, and no matter how much data we have, something is going on that we don't find the core moment to transfer the information and provide appropriate solutions. And I say this because ever since I can remember, there has been a lack of water. The problem of how we measure a social or a fair or an appropriate price for water continued to exist. Around 1929, there were negative problems in regard to the supply of water that Ricardo already referred to. But Adam Smith, he examined Adam Smith. He knew the problem of scanty natural resources, but also the importance of the industrial machinery using up natural resources, thinking that they are inexhaustible. But the only thing that is permanent is the problems we suffer. And to get into the detail, I will refer to the conclusions, and before I am given a yellow card, I like to refer to the problems more than to the solutions. Yes, right now we see that there's a great deal of data, a great deal of information on the phenomenon of water. The part economists contribute is from the border of national accounting. And I will quickly go over this. National accountability try to measure all the economic flows from the different agents of the market, producers and consumers. We measure production, distribution, consumption, and accumulation. And if we think that our colleague has a factory that produces food, we can say that all the food he produces are part of the accounting process. If he has a travel agency, all the wealth coming from the travel agencies are measured in the national accounting system. If you produce robots, robots are part of the national accounting system. Everybody would say that all the flows, economic flows of the water have to be measured by the national accounting system. And this is the way it is. But if we analyze the information, we will see that there is a vector which is itemized by water. We can identify what we produce and who consumes it, but we don't know where the resource comes from. So by this I mean that traditional accounting systems require other technical elements like satellite accounting process in order to try to identify what is going on inside the process. This is why I was telling you that what we are doing is that we want to measure a phenomenon that is an issue. From when you carry out economic activities, the first lesson we learn is that with scanty resources, we want to obtain a maximum proportion of benefits in a way that we can establish a hierarchy. We will try to solve the problems in a hierarchical order, like eating, dressing, pay rent, and what have you. The problem we identify here is that if I open the water tape, I will see that water is flowing. So this means that the hierarchy is not including the problem of water. Since it's coming out of the tape, water tape, I am not getting into the problem of carrying out an economic exercise. So it might seem that the problem of water has nothing to do with the economy from the viewpoint of the user. So you interpreted this appropriately. From the institutional viewpoint and the suppliers of the resource, we know that there is an important issue, which is that water is not abundant. So we have to include this in an economic system that allows us to identify I will hold the microphone in my hand. Something that attracts my attention when we analyze this from an economic point of view is that it doesn't obey the laws of the market. When you demand a good or a service, automatically in the free market, the price tends to go up. But what happens if the population increases and we demand more that product? So there's a lack of elasticity in the resource. It does not answer appropriately to the changes in demand. The price does not increase as a result of the change in the demand. So we have an additional problem. But aside from this problem, which is not elastic, we find that on the other hand, there is not a good that substitutes the resource. The effect of substitution does not come about in this good. The colleague, if he's thirsty, he'll drink a Coke. But if you cannot bathe with a Coke, it's complicated. It's not that simple. It's not that easy. A colleague, a senator, was saying that it's like thinking that you will bathe with a Bonafont bottle of water. I believe that not even Cleopatra would spend that much money if she bathed in Bonafont water. But I cannot know if water is more insignificant to me than Coke, but it depends on how I'm going to use it. And in this case, the problem is that we have to supply water to more than 100 million inhabitants. It seems that it's an economic problem, that we have a problem of lack of water, and hence it generates economic reaction. So this has to be studied. A basic problem also is determining the price of the water. Basically, when you pay your receipt, the cost is higher than the price at which we are paying the price. The cost is more expensive than the price we are paying. So we have another problem, and we can carry out a graph which might be called perverse subsidy. The water has a subsidy that instead of including it in the basic rules of economy, we are not doing that. We are not including it as a part of the economic problems. It is a topic that has to do with the economy, has to be tackled from the border of economy, but not specifically from this economic border, but from the analysis that is not in an indifferent way from the angle of biology, economy, geology. And basically, we might all be participating. So national accounting system recognizes the problem of the lack of water, recognizes that we have to tackle the problem from this trench, but very important is that we have to do it in an orderly way. The national accounting system, through specific tables such as the account of production, of use, and identify water from its extraction, its transit inside the economy, and its return to the environment in 1,000 ways. In this case, the manual Ricardo was referring to with accounting systems, the manual provided by United Nations provides a basic toolbox to harmonize the different flows of water. We can know who supplies the resource and who demands the resource. This might seem, well, this is interwoven. We have the support of the National Water Commission, and we have the available information, but we can carry out an internal audit inside the tables, but because it allows you to know who produces water and who consumes it. A friend was telling me that if something doesn't fit between the supply and demand, he used to say that the monster consuming water drinks a lot of water and does not pee. So you have the resource has to go somewhere, and the flows have to bring about equality, and you can pay some of the accounts you are not familiar with based on difference. So water accounts are an international proposal. Let us say that in some way we have adapted it to our country in order to identify not only the main links between the economy and the water, but also helps us monitor the pressure on the resource, because when we refer to lack of water, we know that we are running short of water, but we don't know who is draining it and from where we are extracting it. So this we would have to carry out some type of technical audit. Among the main principles, among the main arguments, I won't refer to the background, the international manuals, economic and environment regarding water, and the system of economic and ecological accounts. I want to tell you that Mexico in this team inside the national system of information, we are one of the few countries in crafting the water accounting. It doesn't mean that we have joined this group recently, but we have started working as of 2008, and we will observe that it is the developed countries who have worked on this phenomenon. Something we have to comment to is that this international manual has an important section that establishes the statistical standard. Aside from the invitation for countries to carry out water accountability, enjoy the guarantee that the manual has been reviewed appropriately for United Nations and allows to establish a statistical standard. The tables of use, the tables for the flow of water, the emissions accounts, and hybrid accounts. While in economic evaluation, which is the topic which is most complicated, it continues to be in the assessment process. As to water accounting, we have turned to different instruments. We will see this in detail. We have to establish order in the use of the resource. What we have to establish in principle is that system allows you to know how much water we draw from the environment, which is its transit through the economy, and what much are we returning. What is serious is that from all the water we extract, only 9% is treated water, 90% is untreated water, and we have enormous losses in the distribution of the resource. And will this resource remain? Those who work in this phenomenon know that the transfer of the resource from one point to the next represents a great loss of the liquid. In the previous slide, I take up the example of homes. At home, in the homes, we see that they extract resources from the subsoil by 14 hectometers. And what we know as the water table, and a large amount of consumption of homes come from water suppliers. The supply is practically direct to home, and this consumes 240 hectometers, and then they drain it back to the drainage or sewage system and loss by distribution. Everything that is related to homes is perfectly illustrated and understood. Another sector is the industrial sector. We can see on the one hand that it extracts resources from the environment for 1,446 hectometers, 1,700,000, but they receive water from the agencies that operate the resource and consume 434, turning back to the sewage system an amount of 348 and returning the remaining to the environment as untreated or treated wastewater. This is the first essay in order to establish the complete flows of water. With this, I want to say that we require some type of order to systematize all the information that is perfectly detailed by the sector, and will later allow us to establish the tables of supply and demand and use. It's like the chicken broth from Switzerland. We would like you to examine this in the page of the institution, and we do this with the CONAGUA colleagues.
Every figure is in the context of the expert committees. They are discussed. We need to verify the magic word that is called the equilibrium in the environment of the resource. And since I just received my yellow card, now when we talk about the use, we can verify the availability and the organization of agriculture, 61,000 hectometers, and receives water for 4,000 from other economic units, and in a total 65,000 hectometers. And where the offer goes, it has returns to the environment, does not offer any other economic activities, and 26,000 hectometers are consumed. And this is a way we can use this information. Who creates a resource, who extracts it, and how it is returned to the environmental frontier. So we can contribute with the final considerations and say the exhaustion of underground water is has a 0.3% burden on the economy. The issue of water annually is of 1% in the country. Now, our effort, together with the colleagues from the committee, it boils down to the fact that the work done in Mexico is part of one of the best practices internationally and has been incorporated in the monitoring framework for water from United Nations. It is a good practice for other countries and how to manage their basins. It's important to recycle our ideas, because sometimes you think that everything is working perfectly. So you need some counterparts to discuss and how the water counts in Latin America, Dominican Republic, Panama, and at least to have colleagues to work with in Spanish. Thank you, Raúl. We have some times for questions and answers. I don't know if you have your little question.